Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed. Actually, I've had quite a few subscribers in the last few days. Welcome. And it's been on the back of the latest video that I uploaded. So thank you to everybody who commented on that. I had a lot of comments, a lot more than usual. And it had a lot more views as well than I would normally get. I think it was because I was perhaps a little bit critical, and that might have just provoked people or triggered people, and so they actually left a comment who might not normally leave a comment. And also those names, Jim Newman and Tony Parsons, who I was commenting on, those names brought some of you who follow those people and who found them helpful to you. So I did get a little bit of pushback, which is a good thing, because I've really been thinking on it and reflecting it, and that's why I'm making this video to explain really why I was so fiercely anti what they were saying and helping to put it in context in the bigger picture. So if you haven't seen that video, then I will link it. I'll link it here now, and you can perhaps go and watch that one before you come back here. Please do come back here and watch this follow on. I'm going to read a comment left by somebody, Brett, I think it was. This is what you said. Those who say we don't exist are talking from concept, not truth. And I'm sure in the original comment you put talking absolute rather than relative truth. And it really helped me in my understanding that spot on. Absolute truth is absence, no thing. Back to the pre-fallen state. If you want to take Genesis as the story, the creation story, that there was a void. In the beginning was formless void. And God said, let there be light. Back to that beginning, and void just means void, emptiness, absence, anything. And so that is absolute truth. And if you want, that is home. For some people, that will actually not particularly resonate very well, because there are many stages leading us back home, but ultimately that is home, to return to from where we began. The relative truth is that we're in this experience of three-dimensional reality, and we're incarnated human beings. And as Ren said, because you do get musical commentary here as well, and suggestions of people to go and listen to. Hi Ren, if you haven't yet heard of Ren or heard Hi Ren, then do check it out. Hi as in hello, H-I, Ren, R-E-N. And you know, he's talking in that song about this duality that we're in, this dance. And it's some quite deep theological themes really in it, like the Christ and the Antichrist, the voices in your head. But he ultimately says, we must not forget, I must not forget, we must not forget that we are human beings. And that's the relative truth that we're in. And in this video, I'm going to be explaining why I protested so strongly to this idea that there is no value to anything. Although I concede that for some people, maybe that is liberating, depending on who you are, depending on what your circumstances are. And there was somebody, John, I really appreciated your comments. I hope you're still watching. You said that for you, this pushing through existential fear was really important in your life. And so the teaching of people like Jim Newman and Tony Parsons was something that you found really helpful. It brought you peace to know that nothing matters really ultimately. And I was thinking about the fact that you mentioned fear, and how love exists and must exist, which is of course a value, while we're in the dualistic realm. to counter fear. So as long as our experience is of fear and separation, we have to have love, because it's love that will guide us home and help us through that experience of fear. And a text came to mind, perfect love casts out of fear, and I looked it up, and it's 1 John 4:18, and it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, for fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. The ultimate punishment of fear is separation from God. Thankfully, for those who believe in Jesus, that fear has passed. That's actually commentary on it. That's not from the actual quote. But this idea that separation is the ultimate fear. And so this non-duality teaches there is no separation. So there's just this oneness. And in non-duality, there's nothing to resist. There's no fear any longer. So love doesn't even have a role. You know, like if you've been in a relationship and you have experienced abuse or trauma, and you come out of that relationship all wounded, and then you meet someone else, and at the beginning it can be it's almost like self-sabotaging, because you're so needy, you need so much reassurance, you're kind of convinced that it's not going to last, that this person's not going to be around for you. And hopefully if you meet someone really, really good, as I did, they do stick around, and you don't push them away with all your neediness. And so years later, 15, 20 years later, you stop being as needing the reassurance. Whereas in the early days, you need that. You need those hugs. You need them to tell you that they love you, and because you're frightened. It's fear of losing something that you put your hope and trust in. And then when that fear passes and you really believe, I can relax, it's okay, it really is okay, you're quite happy to be absent from that person or from them, not to be constantly having to reassure you. The need passes. And this is probably how it is in our human state. And so the reason why I struggled to hear people being told there is no value, there's no value in anything, and you don't exist, you don't really exist, is because I have, because of the other job that I do, my day job, which I haven't spoken about on this channel, and I am going to talk about now, is I'm a bit nervous about sharing it, and this is why I've called it, am I oversharing? But I think it's really necessary, because it will explain why some of the content has changed and going in a certain direction. And this is coming out of my experience. And so I got a job back in May, and I could talk about the process of how this came about, which is quite remarkable. And I will do another time, because for another video, and I don't want to go too far away from my theme today. But I'm working for the Salvation Army, which is a worldwide organisation that is Christian, but it's all about practical, meeting people at their point of need. And so my role is, it's perfect, it's just the most perfect job for me, because I'm talking, everything is underpinned by the spiritual. And the people that I'm with, they pray before and after everything that we do. And there is, those of you who've been following me for a while know that I kind of went through a stage where I thought, well, I don't pray anymore, I don't pray to God out there, and I've been on my own journey of having to let go of those dualistic ideas of God. And so that was even stopping praying. And it would make me think, well, for this job, you had to be a Christian, and you had to be, that's what it asked. It wanted you to be a Christian and also to be sympathetic to the ethos of the Salvation Army. And I thought to myself, this is interesting, because am I really a Christian? The funny thing is, I had come to the point, I forget the timeline of it, but I'd come to the point where I'd changed the name of my channel to Non-Dual Christian, and I thought, I'm going to stand up and be counted. I know why that was. It was in response to a few people, famous celebrities you might know I'm talking about. There were a few people who were becoming Christian, and they were making videos about Christianity, and also I think I made a video at the time about Doreen Virtue, and I was thinking, gosh, this is really what people are thinking Christianity is. Oh, it's not this. And I was really feeling that I wanted to defend it and say I was quite indignant that it doesn't have to be that. And as I've said before, there are 45,000 different Christian denominations. So, it's a really diverse spectrum. And so I thought, no, I will stand up and be counted and say, look, there is a space for those of us who are feeling more comfortable in the arena or area of being non-dual, but also being Christians. And this is why I've mentioned Richard Rohr before, and the Institute of Institute of Contemplation and Action or something. I can't remember. But it's to do with social action and contemplation. It's the more contemplative, mystical Christianity, and it's more non-dual. And so this job, I thought, well, I'll apply for it. I'll tell you the full story about that another time. But at the interview, they asked about my faith journey. And I thought, that's a great question, because I have to be honest about it. And I explained about how it's changed over the years, and I don't believe in it. I don't pray to the God out there, man in the sky. That's changed. And it's more about the indwelling, or about this ground, thinking of God as the ground of all being, and a more contemplative approach. And they were like, fine. So it was good that I was able to be totally honest about that's where I was coming from. And when I first started the job, which is at a town nearby, and it's my role is a lot working with people that are broken, and people that need support, people that are lonely, people that are, the town is one of the top places in the UK for male, I won't say the word, ending it all, yeah, and loneliness. And so it really is about trying to reach people and let them know they're not alone. And so I forgot what I was going to say. What was I going to say just about the Oh yeah. Anyway, I got the job. Obviously, I got the job. I will, like I say, I'll tell you how that all came about, because it's fascinating, the story, I think, and it talks about, especially about the theme of, are things planned and coordinated, and how when you act on something, then you make a conscious change with your mind. Like, I decided that I was going to start calling myself Christian, so that I could stand up and be counted and say there is a different way of being a Christian. There are alternatives to all that. That's when it is as if it set off a dynamic. It activated certain things, and this job came to me magnetically, or I was pulled to it, whatever. And one of the things that they always do before an event like the cafe, it's a community cafe that I'm now running, is we always pray. And in my first few weeks, it was like, Jill, do you want to open in prayer? Do you want to pray? And I just was thrown in at the deep end. I thought, I'm not used to this. This is so weird, having to say Heavenly Father or dear Jesus. And what I realised is it just came back to me so easily, because it was like, I was thrown in the deep end and I could swim. Because essentially what they're interested in, they couldn't care less whether the nuances of my understanding of the atonement or whatever have changed. That all the sort of details of the theology is kind of like, look, do you know this love, do you believe in this transformational love of Christ? Yes. Okay. In the way that I understand Christ and what Christ is, yes. Do you want others to know about this? Do you feel this compulsion to reach others so that they can be lifted out of their despair and brokenness to find this hope in the light of Christ. Yes. And obviously, it's something that I do feel passionately about. And so it's like, well, that's enough. We need you. We know there's work to be done. And so the prayers just would just flow. And what I realized that we were doing is we were clearing the space. And this has been a learning curve for me, because the prayers, although dualistically framed, it's not about whether it's to a God out there listening. This Nick Cave, you got another musical allusion. Nick Cave's I don't believe in an interventionist God. I don't believe in that anymore. But it isn't about an interventionist God. It's more about getting people on the same page. It's saying, look, let's just focus our attention, because we're going to be we're on the front line. There's kind of in the unseen. We're going into battle kind of thing, because there's all kinds of psychic stuff flying around when you're dealing with people who are, struggling and broken and, battling addiction and all of that. Yeah, and you're bringing the light to them. So you're really just focusing that and saying, let the conversations, let there be openings for conversations that are deeper and more meaningful. So this is why when people say there is no meaning, there is no value, I'm like, yes, there is. Yes, there is. And only the day before seeing that, watching those videos of those two men, because I was asked in a comment, what do you make of radical non-duality? Only the day before, I'd had a man come into the cafe talking to me, and he'd been in a few weeks previously and we'd helped him. He'd gone through a breakdown, just broke down at work one day and was depressed and had to leave his job. But he also left the town, came to a new town, had somewhere to live, but just had nothing. So we sort of said, well, we'd put him in the direction of where he could get what he needed. But we were like, well, we can give you plates and knives and forks. And, we just got a bag together from what we could give him from the cafe, because he had literally nothing. Gave him some tea towels and stuff. And he was back and he was talking, but he was really down, and he was saying, I just sometimes feel like handing my keys in and just going on onto the streets and just walking away from it all. And he was at the point of despair, and one of the phrases he used was, I just don't feel that I've got any worth. I don't feel that I've got any worth and any value. And I said, but you have. You are loved, and we're here for you. It was that having to meet someone at their point of need. Imagine if I'd given ultimate truth in that situation, absolute truth, and said, well, yeah, you're right, there is no meaning. You don't even, you don't have any worth. Your life doesn't have any worth or value, really. It means nothing. And in fact, you don't even exist. It's all just a dream. It's all nothing. And then imagine what that would have done and how he would have gone away. The right way to respond in that situation when someone is in the lowest points of human experience is to reach them with compassion. And compassion reaches out the hand to oh gosh, I get emotional, but it's that what is it? Was that we're all just walking each other home? Keep forgetting who that is. We keep mentioning it, don't we? It's walking each other home. And you say, well, there is no other. Now, what you can do with that are two things. You can either say, there is no other. Absolute truth, you're right. There's only one. Okay, and there's one being. There's not even a being here if you're going to be really pure a bit about it. But there's one. We are all one. You either then say, well, there is no other, so I don't have to take any notice of them because it's just an illusion and it's a dream. They don't really exist. Or the understanding that the other is really you, as Jesus tried to point out to us when he said, when you feed the homeless, the hungry and clothe the naked person, and you help the homeless otherwise, visit the sick person, you're doing it for me. I think that's because Jesus understood, he was an awakened soul. He understood the reality of oneness, of unity consciousness. But as a concession to the people who were listening to him at the time, he said, look, you say that you love me, well then feed my sheep. Do it when you're doing it for all these others, you're doing it for me. And they could grasp that in their kind of relative understanding, because they said, well, we love you, so if you're asking us to do it for them, and then of course we'll do it for them. If you're asking us to imagine that it's you, well, what he was really meaning is everyone you perceive as other. This is the separate self. We think we're all separate from one another. There's only one being on this planet having all these different experiences. It is really you. So you're loving yourself when you're loving the other. Love your neighbour as you love yourself. What he meant really is, because you are, it is yourself. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. For those of you who get it, for those who have eyes and ears to hear and to see, then you'll know what I'm on about. Really, that's what he was always saying, that. And so it's a little bit like that story of, I think they were Down syndrome children at a school. I heard Sean O'Leary tell this story, that they were all in a race, like sports day. And what would normally happen in a race at school is, like, you're all doing the three-legged race, whatever, and people next to you fall down. You're like, oh, great, I can win. So you just carry on going with your partner. But what happened in this particular school was that someone fell down, and then the person, those who were nearer the front, they all stopped, and they realised that someone had fallen down, so they turned around and went back and lifted the other person up. Oh, I'm getting emotional. But the point of the story is, we think that we're so much cleverer and so much advanced, and these are people who have support needs and perhaps have a different, mental age than the average for their physical age. And yet, they understood that we don't get there until we all get there. So they went back and they all ran to the finish line together. And somebody else said a comment. Sorry, I don't know your name, but you said maybe that's what's meant by many are called but few are chosen. Maybe it's not everyone gets this awakening experience of this understanding. And if you're one of the few that do have it, the question is, what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? Are you just going to say, get over it, like somebody did in the comments? Or are you going to say, right, I recognise that I can reach out in compassion to those who don't know it, and I can help walk them home. I could tell you so many stories. I will tell you stories, but I'm not going to tell them all in this video. There are lots more to tell you. But just to say that William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army, when he was, this has just come to my mind to share this, so I'll share this. When he was, old and really infirm and nearly at the end of his days, the Salvation Army was quite established, and they were having this big meeting, convention, whatever, and he was too ill to attend. So they said, will you send a message to all of the soldiers, everybody that's gathered? And he decided to send a telegram. And because he didn't want to waste public funds, you had to pay. It was expensive then to send a telegram, and you had to pay for every word. He decided he was only going to send one word as a message. So what was the one word that he sent, do you think? It's really getting to me, this doing this video. This is what I mean about oversharing. The word was others. So that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. It's not even about beliefs. They weren't even bothered. I could have started saying, well, are you sure you want me? Because you know what, I kind of changed my thinking on the atonement theory now. I think it's like they couldn't care less. Do you love God? Do you love others? I was talking to somebody in we were I was in the pub because I will tell you this story. I don't know how long I've been going on for, but I will tell you this story. So I was when I got the job, I was so pleased, and I said, "Who's paying? Where is the funding coming from for this work?" Because sometimes you get funding from like local authority and things, because Salvation Army is also a charity. It could be some sort of social project or community project, and there is a small amount of funding that comes from a community, like local authority or whatever. But most of the funding for the job is from the Salvation Army Mission Fund. And I was so pleased to hear that, because I thought that's what I'm in. That's the only thing I'm interested in. I don't want to just do social work. I don't want to just do teaching. I want the spiritual element of the work. I want to be able to talk about the spiritual, because it's only the spiritual that really goes to the heart of the problem and really can bring transformation and healing for people to turn their lives around, and people, who are really desperate and broken and their lives are derelict. That's what they need. You can give them practical things that will just help them but it's just a sticking plaster. If for real and lasting change, it's a spiritual dynamic. And so I thought, well, I need to go where the people are, not just sit around and wait for people to come to us. I need to get out and be where the people are. And this is so against my natural personality, because I'm not an extrovert. I would be shy. But it's this conviction. And I thought, well, where are the people? Where would the people be? I'm in the UK, so I know that people will be watching from all over. But in the UK, you'd be at Wetherspoon, wouldn't you? That would be the public place. So if you don't know what Wetherspoon is, it's a chain of pubs. But they're kind of family pubs where they're open all day. Basically, they do breakfast, and you can go and get a coffee for £1.56 or something. You can get warm in the winter. They're like busy, railway stations, just hubs that people hang out there. And I thought to myself, I can't go into the Wetherspoon, and I thought I'm not brave enough to do that by myself. And so I thought, well, maybe there's a nice little pub. No, well, at first I thought, oh, maybe I could go to a Costa coffee shop and just be there and say, I'm here to sort of listen to people and get alongside. We have this thing called withness, not witness, withness. It's about being with people. And then you're there just to listen and just to show that they're not alone. And it's how do we find opportunities to be with people? And Costa Coffee or somewhere like that would be really safe, because it's just cozy and so on. It would have been the easier option, but I thought, I know where I really need to be, but I don't know if I'm brave enough. So I decided on this pub that was really near where the hall is. Anyway, I set off one Sunday morning. I was looking for a solicitor's, because the next day I'd have to find this solicitor's, because I needed these papers witnessing. Okay, and I'd found a solicitor that would do it for me. And so I didn't know where they were, and I was looking it up on my phone on the maps. And I thought, I've got time to just go and find it. So I was following it along, quite a long way to walk, but I got there and it was like, you're now 200 yards away or whatever. I thought, I'm really near. And then I saw it. I thought, great, that's it. I'll know where to come tomorrow. And then I just stopped in my tracks, because I could not believe I had found myself standing right in front of Wetherspoon in big writing, massive big building next door to this solicitor's. I needed to be out the next day. I thought, this is not an accident. Here I am standing in front of it, and I was wearing my uniform. It's like witness wear, so I was in all the clothes that said, with the Salvation Army Red Shield badge on and so on. And I thought, okay, I'm going in. This is not by accident. Before I talk myself out of it, I'm going up those steps and I'm going in, and I'm going to ask to speak to the manager and see if it could arrange to go and have a little listening post there, maybe once a week. And so I did. I went upstairs. Anyway, the long story short is they weren't there, but the person, lovely girl, talked to me and said, I don't see why not. I'll ask the manager. And anyway, I had some emails and he said, look, I don't mind. You can come as often as you want. Come twice a week if you want. Really lovely, warm guy who was open to what we wanted to achieve and understood that, yeah, it could really help people, especially through the winter months. A lot of people who are lonely come in here. So I'd been doing this and I'd been sitting there and I set up my little... And first, when I first went, I'd go into a corner where that's where they gave me a little sort of tucked me away somewhere so I could be a bit private. And it was a big long table and I had this piece of paper they put on saying reserved. And I'd sit there and, of course, the hour would go and nobody would come and talk to me. And I thought, okay, well, they're just getting used to it. I'd put it out on social media that I was going to be there, kept doing it. So we were into a number of weeks went by. And I think, is this a waste of time? Anyway, I got a little bit braver. So if I'm sitting around thinking, well, I'm just sitting here and I might as well be just circulating a little bit. So I was going around and just picking up some empties and taking them back to bar. I thought, at least that way I can just get chatting to people. So I did have more and more people were just smiling at me and nodding. And then I found, I went and it was really quite busy. And the table that they normally reserve, there were people at because they just moved the sign out of the way. And so I said to the manager, I said, does it matter where I sit? He says, well, where do you want to sit? And I'd seen that there was a two table at the front of as you just first go in, two table there. Table for two, and I thought, can I go there? And so now that's my place, and I set up, I sort of draped the flag over, I put my listening post sign there. And so when people are coming in, they see me straight away, and sometimes they're sort of like smirking, and then I don't know, think it's a bit weird. But then on the way out, they turn and they say, they say goodbye, they smile and acknowledge me, and it's as though they're kind of gaining some respect for why I'm there. The reason I'm telling you all this is that the last week, when I was here just a few days ago, I'm going to tell you more about this another time. Actually, I sit there and I do this practice, this activity, this spiritual practice. So I'm thinking, if to anybody watching me, they think I'm not doing anything, but there's stuff going on. And I was doing this spiritual practice that I will tell you about, and then I ended up talking to somebody who was with someone else, and they'd had a bit to drink, and he was being a bit leery, and I thought, I haven't got long to speak to this person. But they were asking me about why I was there and what I was doing, and I said, what the Salvation Army was and how everything is driven by the spiritual. And she said, well, I don't really believe in God. And I had my lanyard around me, and I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I said, it's about people. It's about people. And I was just showing, I said, look, love. I had this round my neck, and it said, love God, love others. Love God, love others. And when I showed her that, she just filled up. And she was just pouring out stuff to me and telling me all about her situation in her life. And the amount of information she gave me in this short amount of time, while this other guy she was with was just kind of getting ready to go and being a bit, yeah. Anyway, and when we stood up, she wanted to take my number. I gave her my work number. I said to her, just come to be with us. And we're in a situation where you're in an environment where there won't be any drink, there won't be any substances, and you can just be safe. And you won't have the influence to be drink, because this is what had happened. Something bad had happened for her, and so she would found this drinking friend, and they were just trying to forget because she was scared. Anyway, the point is, she hugged me, and when she was hugging me, she just wouldn't let go. Stood in the middle of Wetherspoon at the front entrance and just hugging for ages. And I'd only just recently seen, I think it came up on Facebook or something, I don't know, it was saying about when you hug, if you hug for more than 10 seconds or something, it releases serotonin, and serotonin it makes you feel safe. I thought, isn't that interesting that she was just not wanting to let me go because she didn't feel safe. And Oh, everyone would have seen that. Everyone would have seen that. And I would have never believed that I would be doing that. This is what I mean about this. It takes you out of what you think you're able to do yourself. This desire for connection to others and this letting go of the small self, the personality. People were saying about that in the comments, that it's about knowing that the self isn't really you, it's detaching from it and knowing this freedom that comes from that. And this is very much what is meant by it's no longer I that lives but Christ in me. It's I become less, that he becomes more. And consciously saying that, when I put that high-vis jacket on and walk down the street, I think, right, Jill, I've left Jill behind. I'm just being this light, this open light and love for the world. And it's magnetic, and it is amazing how it draws people. And so really that's what I wanted to share, to explain where I was coming from in that last video, to acknowledge those of you who didn't agree with me and were saying something different, to acknowledge that I affirm where you're coming from, and that neither of us is right and the other wrong. We're both right, or we're both valid in what we're saying, and it's all about whereabouts we are on the journey. And so thank you for listening. I found that a little bit tricky to do, really, but I wanted to share with you honestly. And I look forward to telling you a lot more. I'm glad that I'm able to, I've told you this because it really is shaping a lot of what I'm reflecting on. And some of these stories, although I have to be respectful for confidentiality, of course, I can tell you about themes and happenings and people's stories respecting confidentiality and privacy in a way that speaks to us, speaks to the universal human condition. So thanks for listening. I'd love to hear your comments. Please do continue to leave your comments, because it just is lovely to connect with you. And I do read all of them. And I'll see you again very soon. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. God bless.